أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على نبي الله وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. I would like to seize this opportunity to welcome all our brothers and sisters that are able to join us. In particular, I would like to welcome our brother, Professor Omar Hassan Kasule, who is the Secretary General of the IIIT and based in Riyadh. I also would like to acknowledge the presence of our brother, Honorable Minister of FCT, Malam Muhammad Musa Bello. Along the same line, we have our brother, who is the Commissioner of Education in Kaduna State, Dr. Shehu Usman Muhammad. You are all welcome. And of course, to also acknowledge the presence of the chair of the occasion, in person of Professor Nasru Muhammad Metrare, who was the former Vice Chancellor of Ibrahim Babangida University, Lafay, Niger State. So you are all welcome. And I think so far, these are the people we can immediately recognize and acknowledge and welcome all other brothers and sisters that join us in this important program. And Alhamdulillah, the IIIT Nigeria, maybe some may be hearing the name for the first time. The IIIT stands for International Institute for Islamic Thought. This is an organization that is focusing on education, in particular, integration of knowledge. And a good example of this, how people can understand this issue of integration of knowledge, is to say people having the dual knowledge of the education. And a good example is our presenter today, that is from Nigeria, Professor Ishaq Oloyede, is real educationist that has both sides, that is the Islamic knowledge as well as the conventional knowledge. So, and outside, a good example that we always cited is Professor Omar Hassan Kasule, who is very vast in the Islamic knowledge aspect, and also a professor in the medical. So he combines also the two. The idea, I mean, that is why he is the one championing this issue of integration of knowledge, which the IIIT is working hard to promote. So Alhamdulillah, today we are going to be discussing the issue of education in Nigeria vis-a-vis the issue of this pandemic, the COVID. As we know, education is affected everywhere globally, but in Nigeria, we are focusing to see what are the effects of the COVID to the Nigerian education, and what are the solutions, so that we really start preparing ourselves for how to confront and resolve the issues, the negative issues brought by the COVID as far as the education is concerned. So this is what we hope to listen to or hear from our erudite professor, Professor Ishaq Oloyede, who is going to be introduced formally to all of us. So far, we want to appeal to the participants that everybody, whoever is unmuted, when he comes to those that were identified earlier, if you come to speak, you unmute yourself, and then after you speak, you can mute yourself so that we can reduce the interferences from outside. This is part of the procedure. Now I want to go ahead to introduce our chairman, the chairman of this occasion, who is Professor Nasru Maitrare, popularly known as Professor Nasru Maitrare. As I said, Professor Nasru Maitrare is the immediate past Vice Chancellor for Ibrahim Babangida University, Lafay in Niger State, and who has been with us all through. He is the one who is going to chair this occasion today, inshallah. So, Professor Nasru Maitrare, you are welcome. And I am handing over the whole affairs to you to continue from there, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I think the next activity for us is recitation of the Quran by the brother who will lead us in that activity. May we invite the brother to please go ahead and recite all the Quran.
Doctor, you can recite a verse of the Quran
for us.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. صدق الله العظيم.
ما شاء الله. Once again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. Let me join the convener in welcoming the Honorable Minister and all our distinguished participants who have made the effort to be on this very important program. I believe we are all convinced that the importance of today's program cannot be overstated. It is safe to assert that probably no other sector has been worse hit by the corona phenomenon than the education sector. All other sectors have functioned minimally, even in the peak days of the corona reign. However, the education sector has remained more or less comatose. The challenge therefore posed by the corona pandemic is indeed a wake-up call for all of us. Now, incidentally for us in Nigeria, even before the advent of the COVID phenomenon, the state of education has been a subject of intense public discourse. Some time ago, we all remember the federal government proposing to declare a state of emergency in education. Unfortunately, here we are. COVID-19 has come to further accentuate the fragility of our education sector. While it is clear that the grim situation is not limited to Nigeria, indeed for Africa in the last 10 years or so, the average continental performance in education has deteriorated as reported by many global indices. The challenge for Nigeria is heightened by the fact that a large proportion of our learning communities is not even equipped to adapt or rapidly transition to the online learning environment amidst other fundamental deficiencies that afflict our education sector. Fortunately for us, we have someone who is better suited, and I want to assert that there is no better candidate to discuss the new challenge for Nigeria's education system than our own Professor Ishaq Oloyede. So, of course, as we all know, He is a renowned scholar, he's an outstanding education administrator, and a legendary leader of a foremost education parastatal here in Nigeria. Indeed, one can say that his achievements are so remarkable that the Minister of Education at one time, in fact, in a forum which I attended, a public forum, openly canvassed for Professor Oloyede, to be made Minister of Education. And by the special grace of God, it shall come to pass, inshallah. This is the kind of person that we have today to present on this very important topic. I urge us all to listen very attentively and note our comments and questions, which will subsequently be addressed after the presentation of Professor Ishaq Oloyede. Once again, thank you very much for being part of this very great event. We look forward to listening attentively to Professor Ishaq Oloyede. Thank you very much. Professor Oloyede, I invite
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much.
Commence your presentation.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil mursalin Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man dalaka mudlaka ila yawmiddin. The chairman of this great occasion and former Vice Chancellor IBB, the Honorable Minister of the FCT, our brother who is also a pride to Islam in his activities as a public officer. Our brother, the Secretary General of the IIIT, all the way from Saudi, our father, Dr. Jubril Oyekon, the Honorable Commissioner for Education, Dr. McCarthy from Kaduna, my friend, Dr. Aliu Tanko, who is the brain behind this platform, distinguished other brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let me thank all of you, the organizers, for considering me worthy of this platform, this podium to provide my thoughts on Nigeria's education in the context of COVID-19 pandemic. I have tried as much as possible to resist the temptation of mixing the issues of problems that Nigeria education has prior to COVID-19 pandemic, because the organizers, by the choice of topic, want us to discuss only COVID-19 induced problems and prospects, not what it was, because the problem of education in Nigeria is rather complex, complicated. It's just like fasting before fasting. We have been fasting, so to say, before the normal fasting. So we are addressing an issue beyond, we will try as much as possible to limit ourselves to the context of COVID-19. It is apt and timely that the International Institute of Islamic Thought conceived the idea of organizing this important seminar at this critical time of our existence. Conceived as a foremost Islamic think tank, the intellectual powerhouse for the Ummah and humanity, it is therefore axiomatic that Muslims cannot afford to be at the periphery in addressing a phenomenon as monstrous and as deadly as COVID-19 is. In a situation where humanity is confronted with existential pandemic, Muslim bodies must also be at the forefront of generating ideas that ignite values towards solving the problem. I think this intervention by IIIT is a step in the right direction. Given that Islam itself, as you all know, Islamics is a conflux of all disciplines, consisting of belief system, the knowledge system, and the value system, because the Quran does not leave any matter unaddressed. Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Ama faratna fil kitabi min shay'in." We have neglected nothing whatsoever in the book. Nothing is left without a mention in the Quran. It is therefore part of the divine responsibility of Muslims to reflect, seek solutions or pathways, and provide platforms for sharing information. Almighty Allah again, Surah Muhammad, Quran chapter 47, verse 24, Almighty Allah said, say, "Afala yatadabbaruna al-Quran am ala qulubin afkaluha." That is, do they not reflect upon the Quran, or are there locks upon their hearts? So if you can reflect on the Quran, if you can reflect on what you see, then many things will be open to us. The subject of COVID-19 has proved to be again a critical one in many respects, and the centrality of persistent brainstorming and consistent reflection on its implication for every aspect of human life, from religion to education to governance and social well-being. This cannot be overemphasized. I therefore want to again commend IIIT for the initiative and appreciate the leadership of the Central Zone for providing the opportunity to share some relevant information on this topical issue in the world today. I also want to resist the attempt about whether COVID-19 was mischievously introduced or not. That this is not a platform for it. Different claims have been made about COVID-19 with some experts predicting that it will even remain here forever. Another saying it will remain our reality for some years more. Nevertheless, whether the virus will be defeated in a year, 3 or more, what is incontrovertible is that if education is life and ignorance is death, there must be a way of surviving and moving forward with our education within the context of COVID-19 pandemic. The survival implies the continuation of education, as well as the development of the right responses and innovative strategies for coping with the situation for as long as the pandemic lasts. And as Muslims believe that nothing really happens for nothing, because Allah is purposeful, the right attitude is to consider the pandemic as Allah's way of directing, inspecting, correcting, or perfecting our ways of doing things. It is from this perspective that this challenge is viewed, and we are being called upon to devote our time in providing the context to the situation and charting the way forward. As evident in the topic, I've modified the original topic by changing mist to context, since former connotes the positioning of something in a way that is surrounded by other things or part or in the middle, as no one knows whether we are in the middle or in the beginning of the pandemic. We cannot say yet. So in other words, what is the fate of education in Nigeria in the context of the current coronavirus, whether beginning of it, in the midst of it? My approach is to do a situation analysis and provide some food for thought generally, and call our attention as Muslims to some peculiar lessons we could derive from it. The coronavirus pandemic, named by the World Health Organization as COVID-19, was first reported by World Health Organization on the 31st of December 2019. And on January 30, 2020, it was declared a global health emergency. By March 11, 2020, World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global health pandemic as it spread fast across many parts of the world. Though it is traced to the wet animal market in Wuhan, China, the name coronavirus disease 2019 was adopted in order to stigmatize the origins of the virus in terms of population, geography, or animal associations. We as Muslims, we need to take note of that. Nobody is calling coronavirus except for some mischievous individuals. They are not calling it Wuhan. They are not calling it China, which means they are accepting that this coronavirus came by accident from China, and China was not to be stigmatized. For the purpose of argument, you just imagine if this had occurred in a country that is considered to be an Islamic country. If this had happened or it had been caused by a Muslim, you would still know that the stigmatization will have even been orchestrated because it will be called, and of course, you know, when a Muslim commits an offense, a sin, rather than naming him by his father, the whole world will call him a Muslim fundamentalist, a Muslim this and a Muslim that. So it is important that we note from this that the whole world, when they are unfair to Islam, it is not by accident, it is deliberate. Otherwise, they couldn't have avoided the stigmatization of the origin of this pandemic. This is not this issue of a strain of the same disease. This is not the first time that this will happen. A strain of the same disease had affected more than 8,000 people in 2002 to 2003. But its notoriety only struck the world in a deadly manner in December 2019 and early 2020. Though the world is not just witnessing pandemics, COVID-19 has shaken the entire world to its foundations, that it is the worst calamity of a lifetime for millions of people in terms of its far-reaching implications. There was the bubonic plague, which affected 25 million people in Europe, out of its 100 million population as at then in the 14th century. The most recent plague was the influenza pandemic that ravaged the world between 1918 and 1920, resulting in the death of about 50 million persons. The current generation is well familiar with the acquired immune deficiency syndrome, AIDS, which had claimed the life of 25 million people since 1981, with additional 333 million people living with this virus up to now. The need, that's noted. As at Monday, August 24, 2020, the world has recorded 23,638,178 cases of coronavirus, with the death of 813,419 and 16,133,728 recovery. Globally, 6.63 cases are mild, while some 61,000 are serious or critical. For some months, the world was practically grounded as governments shut their land and air-sea borders with a view to containing the spread of this virus. From all this, it is crystal clear that human beings and anything we associate with Allah or whatever we say we are whatever power we think we have, it is clear to everybody to know that whatever, we are so helpless in the, we appear powerful, but we are very, very powerless. What came to mind is this verse of the Quran. When you read the Quran, chapter 22, verse 33, where Almighty Allah, after Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ya ayyuhan nas, duriba masalun, fastami'u lahu, inna alladhina tad'una min dunillahi lan yakhluqu dhubaban walaw ijtama'u lahu wa in yaslubuhum dhubabun shay'an la yastankisuhu minhu ضعف الطالب والمطلوب. Translated as, O mankind, an example is being presented to you, so listen to it. Indeed, those you invoke beside Allah will never create anything as much as a fly. They cannot ex nihilo create anything. Everything that they claim they are manufacturing are based on what God has manufactured. Either the air, water, if they cannot ex nihilo create anything, even if they gather together for that purpose, if all of them were to come together, and if the fly, something as little as the fly, should steal away from them a thing, snatch it from them, they could not recover it from the fly. Weak are the pursuer and the pursued. So that shows us clearly that here is something less than a fly that has come. And as powerful as we are all helpless. So it shows clearly that if God had wanted the whole world to be blind at that time, we could have all become blind and we would just be lamenting after all we have become blind. So, which means it is possible for a virus to come into this world and everybody in the world will become blind. So we would then realize how helpless we are with all our machine guns, all our aircrafts and everything we have. When we cannot see, then we will know how useless our so-called power or achievements are. So this calls our attention, COVID-19 calls our attention, particularly of Muslims, to the fact that this is not the worst thing that can happen. We must be hopeful. Because if God had wanted it to be worse than this, He could. And that's why I gave an example of all of us being blind. Even when some of us are, if some of us would then be dying as they are dying now, then who will help? Where would the guidance come? Where will we get the person to pilot all of us if we have all gone blind? So this is why one of the reasons why we must be thankful to God for where we are and still be seeking the pleasure of God so that it wouldn't be worse than it is. In Nigeria, the first confirmed case of COVID-19 was reported on the 27th of February this year, when an Italian citizen tested positive for the virus. Since then, Nigeria has recorded, as at last Monday, 52,548 cases and 1,007 deaths. The disease has also impacted seriously on the political, economic, social, and particularly educational life of Nigeria, like all other people across the world. For instance, all schools and institutions of higher learning have been formally closed in Nigeria since March 19, and they are yet to fully open now. The hopes and aspirations of hundreds of thousands of final year students of tertiary institutions to graduate or move on with their lives have been threatened by the pandemic. According to UNESCO, apart from the students of tertiary institutions, about 35.9 million primary and secondary school learners are out of school as a result of the closure. For primary schools, some 25.6 million learners are affected, among whom 87% are enrolled in public schools. And of the roughly 10.3 million secondary school students who are out of school as a result of the closure, approximately 81% of them are public school students. The big question is, what is the way forward for Nigeria where education is assumed largely to be schooling? That is, in other places, as we discovered, they could just manage with some problem and they will go on with their education. But in Nigeria, education had been limited to schooling. That anybody who does not go to school or who is not going to school is considered out of school, is considered useless and incapable of contributing anything to national development. And even students who are supposed to be educated, we have limited their source of knowledge to schooling. So that further compounds our problem. The significance of education. As Muslims, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on significance of education. Because one thing that strikes me about Islam and education is the fact that if you reflect deeply about the first revelation to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the word ikra, that word, the verb is a transitive verb, though it can also be intransitive. It could take an object, it may not take an object. But the use there is ikra. It didn't say read something, which means the reading is not limited. The studying is not limited. What the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked to recite was not presented graphically to him. So the word ikra there is not that you are giving somebody something and you say, let's listen and read. It means more than that. It connotes that we must reflect, we must think, we must recite, we must learn. It's very expansive in its meaning and within the context of it to mean seek knowledge, all forms of it. Education is so crucial, therefore, that it is from the cot to the coffin, from the cradle to the grave. There are several definitions of education, but here I prefer Abdullah in 1982, where in his education theory, a Quranic attitude, a Quranic outlook, where education is defined from the Islamic point of view as, and I quote, the balanced growth of the total personality of man through the training of man's spirit, intellect, rational self, and bodily senses. This means education is beyond the memorization or regurgitation of facts, but a system of personal and social renewal, which Imam Abu Hanifa aptly construes as, and I quote, a process of self-discipline, which involves physical, mental, and spiritual training of man. The goal of education from the perspective of Islam, therefore, is to help build up the individual who will act as Allah's Khalifa, or at least put him on the path that leads to such an end. The significance of education can therefore not be underrated. Now, the whole world, education is important not just to the Muslims, but to the whole world. But education at stages is not stagnant. What is education today will become ignorance tomorrow. But unfortunately for us, before the pandemic, there was already a problem. Pandemic only compounded our problems in this part of the world. Because education had been identified to be in 4 stages. They're called education 1.0, education 2.0, education 3.0, education 4.0. Education has evolved over time and space. The eras of evolution in education are education 1.0, education 2.0, education 3.0, and education 4.0. The eras are interrelated and interconnected. Education 1.0 comprises centuries of experience in memorization. And after it comes 2.0, which was internet-based learning, which leads to 3.0 that empowers students to produce, not merely consume knowledge. Before you now have education 4.0, which enables innovation. When we look at the models that had been created, you will see that at the first stage, initial stage, is what they call download education. You just download, you receive, you respond, and you regurgitate. Regurgitate. You do not do anything other than what you are giving to you, what we see our fathers doing, and that's what we just reproduce. The knowledge source is the educator. Once there is no teacher, education is dead. The students are supposed to be impacted. They had no voice at all. They are passive learners. And instruments, technology, or even mere teaching aids were almost nil. Then in the world moved to open access education. That was the second stage, where they are communicating, they are contributing, they are collaborating, and they are creating. That's what they call the 4 C's. And the teacher or educator became just a facilitator who teams with the students in order to create more interesting class experience. The student became active, asking questions and being involved in what was happening, and involving others, bringing others, getting knowledge from others, using materials to do was the level. Then we moved to education 3.0. This was knowledge producing education. Education that is consolidating what was before it and then expanding the frontiers of knowledge. It is the connectivist approach, connecting, collecting, and curating. And the learner, the learning designers, leaders of collaborative knowledge, and all other sources became the educator, not just the teacher. The students also became co-developers and co-researchers. They became authors. They were drivers, not mere passengers in the learning experiences. And of course, digital technology came and used for the production of knowledge. Then we come to education 4.0. This is innovation producing education, adaptive learning, learning process that will be based on real time and student profile. And these are supported by artificial self-governed learning, where you don't need a teacher will just facilitate, the student will learn more. The teachers became counselors. They are participants with the students, and learning became the focus. It appears Nigeria had, we were talking about, apart from the fact that education, we are unprepared for it. We are still on 1.0 in our education system. Why many countries in the world have contingency plan? Because they are operating synchronously and asynchronously at education 3.0 or even 4.0. It was easy to transit fully and migrate from the traditional brick and mortar classroom to virtual classroom. With the restriction imposed by COVID-19 and the lockdown protocol of school, of schools. The Nigerian education system was entirely shut down since more than 6 months ago, and it was only in August that closure was relaxed, except for few private, largely private institutions that are operating online, and even the efficiency was questionable. Apart from the economic impact on critical segment of the society, the loss in human capital development over the period is immeasurable. It appears evident that if Nigeria had paid serious attention to online learning, e-learning, open and distance learning, and electronic learning, the effect of COVID with regard to educational destruction would have been mitigated. Even if Nigeria had created hybrid for our education with synchronous and asynchronous learning system ongoing simultaneously, with one supporting and reinforcing the other, the migration to the online platform only will have been seamless. However, as Professor Oluwade has said, Nigeria is not where we should be. That is the summary of the problem in education. Though the goals of distance education are well articulated since over 16 years ago, this had not been implemented. Some of our problems, and like I said, I want to resist being grafted to the original problem, but we cannot but mention the fact that this problem is compounded by lack of consistency in our program and policy. Policy somersaults. We will decide one thing today and we are going to do another tomorrow. There are things that you have in our books. They are not what we are implementing. There is problem of electricity. That's why the billions that we spent on electricity, poor telecommunication, lack of access, poor postal system, poor economic situation, middle level, poor everything that could enhance ICT was not there. Today, the problems still remain multifaceted and multidimensional, with the major ones being lack of serious advocacy, unacceptable public perception of distance learning as a poor cousin to face-to-face formal learning. Anyone who does not go to school is considered useless, no matter what he learned. Somebody is a malam because he was not certified in the school. You just look at him as an ignorant person, and you look down at him. He can, even if he talks, so he's an illiterate. Illiterate not because he could not read. He could read Arabic and many more other things, but because he could not read. Generally, Nigeria education was facing serious problems because of pandemic. Some of these challenges included, as elaborately documented by the presidential retreat in education, a large number of out-of-school children, acute shortage of expedient and requisite infrastructure, poor curriculum, and so on and so forth. Our quality assurance system is weak. Teachers' welfare, zero. You see, everybody wants to be a doctor now because a medical doctor, once he finishes before he goes on NYC, he's already earning more than a teacher who has spent 25 years in service. If you join the federal public service today as a medical doctor, somebody who joined 30 years ahead of you as a teacher, you will have double of what he has. Because somebody who is a teacher who joined a federal government college or a college of education, a university, even after he has earned his PhD, if he has spent 25 years in service, his salary will not be more. Even in the university, maybe he will be earning 450,000. But somebody who is a medical doctor, a medical doctor who finishes today, and after his what do you call it? The housemanship. He earns immediately higher salary than the person who has spent 25 years in service, either even if he had earned first class. the reward system does not favor the teachers. And if you do not pay the teachers very well, how will you expect them? And some people will be complaining, teachers, why are you admitting people? When they are not there, nobody wants to read education. Unless you want the class to be empty, nobody wants to study Greek. So you have to pick those who apply. You cannot force those people who are not interested, and they cannot be interested until we pay attention to the plight of teachers. Our political office holders, I think they are not paying particular attention to that fact, to the fact that even corruption that we want to fight, the origin of it was the fact that they are not properly being taught. And they cannot be properly taught or be properly educated if those who are to teach them are themselves deficient. You put fourth class or fifth class people, or even first class, who are frustrated because they know they could do better and they could not do, and they are poorly paid. They now go to the class. They are not motivated to do anything. So, as it is, according to UNESCO, 40 million learners have been affected by the closure and so on and so forth. Our problem is just like the Quran chapter 24, verse 40 says. It says, we are like darkness. They are like darkness within an unfathomable sea, which is covered by waves, upon which are waves, over which are clouds, darkness, some of them upon others. When one put out his hand in that situation, he can hardly see it. And to whom Allah has not granted light from him, there is no light for such a person. Unquote. In the current situation, Nigeria is at a verge with a compelling need to reshape and rebuild the education system. There are many steps to be taken, and I think we need to confront that. I'm aware that the current Minister of Education is doing a lot in terms of trying to address the out-of-school system, trying to ensure that the system, the pillars of education, you have the ministerial system. They has a plan for reactivating, but the problems are more than that. The problems seem to overwhelm the system. There is no, the real issue is that we are not devoting enough resources to the education system. Apart from the fact that the not sufficient amount allotted to education is also being squandered by some people. So the problem is, as we are moving from one problem, you are running into another problem. We believe that the implication of COVID-19 pandemic for education is the need to leapfrog to education 3.0, if not 4.0, to favorably compete with other countries of the world and reposition education for the present and the future. As the Quran says, La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha. God does not burden any human being with more than what he will be able to bear. Quran chapter 2, verse 286. This means we have to keep innovating and implementing, as all the resources to do this have been bestowed upon us by Allah. Before I go into the general recommendation, let's note that in Allah la yugayiru ma biqawmin hatta yugayiru ma bi anfusihim. God will not change the situation with a people until they change what is in themselves. That Quran chapter 13, verse 11. We as Muslims, what are the lessons? Some of the lessons we are learning from COVID-19 for our education and more than. I just give you a peculiar one before I go into the general. We talk about cleanliness, for instance. Everybody knows that cleanliness is a pillar, a strength of Islam. It's a virtue of Islam. It's a feature of Islam. But what are the lessons we are learning? Even in ordinary ablution, Now, because when you are performing ablution, you have to put your finger into your mouth, you have to put your finger into your nostrils and so on. This one has come. How do we adapt it to what we are doing? Is it not imperative for us to say before we start ablution now, it's important that we wash our hands with soap because of what we will use our fingers to do? The fact that we are still going to wash our feet with our bare hands, that also shows clearly along the line that we must clean our hands properly. And even in washing our legs, we will do in such a way that we will be aware that the washing itself has to be methodical in such a way that you do not, after putting your hand on the bottom of the foot, still put it on your body. These are things that we have to design and look at it very well. For instance, any Muslim had been designed. We have been brought up to hate alcohol unless you are not somebody is not a proper Muslim. Alcohol is detested, just like you detest anything that you don't want to see. But here are we now, even in the mosque, 70% alcohol sanitizer. How do we combine this? How do we tolerate this fitna that has come? That you put 70% content of alcohol as you are going to the mosque. How do we accommodate it? But when we realize that Almighty Allah said even in alcohol there are monophil in us, what we were told not to do is not to drink or consume it. If it comes to it, you will now fall back to the verse of the Quran that had told us that alcohol had some values for human beings. And no part of the Quran, of course, that verse had not been abrogated, irrespective of whatever my brothers from one part of the world may be thinking. I belong to the school of thought that does not believe in all those not so that people are talking about. As far as I'm concerned, that verse remains. Therefore, the advantages of alcohol still be there, but we must use it properly. Just as anything, it is not to be consumed. It is to be used to sanitize. And we have to. Even the carpets and the rugs we use in the mosque, can we not have a rethink? Can't we? Are we not going to be exposing ourselves to undue danger, peculiar danger? Education process itself. When Almighty Allah was telling us that He will send a prophet with the language of the people to them, the language has changed from Hausa, Igbo, or Yoruba, or Arabic. The language is ICT. The language that we are talking about now, shouldn't we now incorporate it as part of our traditional Islamic education? That ICT is like the language you are learning to convey the message. COVID-19 has brought that out. The arrangement of our traditional Arabic school and the population is also important. Again, the toilet facilities in our mosques. When we go into our mosque to perform ablution, how clean, how are we maintaining the facilities there? Not to talk of our madaris, our schools. Then the issue of handshake came in. I'm not aware of the Quran or the Hadith prescribing exchange of check of hands, but it has become part of our culture. Salamu alaikum. What Quran asks of us is to greet ourselves with Salamu alaikum. But checking of hand had become part of our cultural development. How do we get out of it? How do we limit ourselves? How do we obey this? Not because many of us are taught that shaking of hands, exchange of hands is part of Islam. It's a culture. It's not part of Islam. If we can now be COVID-19 protocol compliant because we don't want to die, why are we not Islamic compliant? We always complain, is the world, is this world, is this world. But because you don't want to die now, many of us are complying with COVID-19 protocols, which means if we are really sincere, we can be compliant with Islam. Again, COVID-19 must have shown you clearly. Masha Allah, la quwwata illa billah. All of people who are planning what they will do in 2020, you can see that most of 2020 had gone into washing of hands now. And all the plans have been abated. Sincerity. And one important thing is that, why are we really Muslims? Those of us who are calling ourselves Muslims, we need to re-examine ourselves. COVID-19 had brought this clearly. In Nigeria alone, not less than 500 billion naira will have been spent on Hajj this year by Muslims. The money they will have spent on Hajj, not less than 500 billion. But we couldn't go on Hajj. But where is the money? They are keeping the money. They are wasting the money. Can't everybody who is unable to go on Hajj, was unable to go on Hajj because of COVID-19, devote 10% of what you will have spent on Hajj to the poor and the needy in our society? In your village, wherever you are, wouldn't you have devoted at least 10% of what you could have gone to Mecca to spend or waste, depending on how sincere you are? If you spend this 10% on the poor and the needy around you, I am convinced from my little knowledge of Islam that the reward, particularly for those of you who are not first-timers in going to Mecca, the reward will be higher than what you will have earned in going to Mecca. But the money, you are either keeping it or spending the money or wasting the money on what is not it. Again, COVID-19 as Muslims has taught us that we have to learn and relearn. As we are here now, I could see some of my brothers on the screen because I'm in the office, and I could see almost all of us on a large screen, not just the few that you are seeing. I could see at least 29 plus 29 persons that I'm looking at directly from here on my screen. If this is the case, that you see some of us, the etiquette is not there. I could see people lying down on their beds and participating. The etiquette of the new system requires some new learning. If you know you are compelled to be on your bed, then you put off the camera. Some are embarrassing themselves by exposing themselves to the camera unnecessarily. These are things that we have to learn and unlearn. I could see somebody who is taking a camera while you are at a meeting. So these are some of the things that COVID-19 had imposed on us, that we have to learn and relearn and be able to present ourselves well as Muslims. Now, I also want to make some general recommendations. One, education delivery should transit from being school center to learning center, because what remains after schooling is learning. What can be delivered, which can be delivered both physically and virtually. Two, a student-centered approach should be adopted in various schools instead of teacher-centered. Three, technology infrastructure should be upscaled in our education sector, particularly for online teaching and so on. Education institutions should be encouraged to collaborate with leading IT giants like Google and Microsoft, with a view to bridging the extant digital divide between Nigerian institutions and others in the world. Emergency online teaching is not enough and it's not sustainable. And that's what people are doing now. Emergency online teaching, which is not efficient. Relevant infrastructure and facilities the development should be provided to support the teaching. The government, through the regulatory agencies of tertiary education, UC, MBT, and NCC, and other stakeholders, should organize capacity building seminars for teachers and lecturers so that they may become prepared for this type of COVID-19. Higher education institutions should invest in technological infrastructure rather than building houses and the classrooms that they will never have opportunity of using in order to streamline education along with reality of the digital economy. Universities should develop e-learning policies. Students and lecturers in tertiary institutions should be encouraged and supported to have internet-enabled mobile devices for academic purposes. Higher education institutions should be encouraged to develop capacity to utilize open resources for learning. Not forgetting that education is also sought and gotten from religious institutions, essentially Islamic establishment. It means that digital education must be our priority for our imams and the du'at that we have all over the country, because the coronavirus has shown clearly that we can be deactivated and we will not be able to communicate. And you cannot, nobody will understand this except those who can do it. One implication of COVID-19 for Nigeria education is to rekindle our awareness that Nigeria education operates at an unacceptable level. At a time when the world is on education 4.0, we are on 1.0. It cannot be business as usual. Therefore, we must upscale what we are doing and move to create an hybrid of system so that we can take our education forward. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wassalamu ala al-mursalin. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much, Professor Ishaq Oloyede. Incidentally, it's not a physical. I will have said we should give you a round of applause. But we should appreciate Professor Ishaq Oloyede for this incisive and thought-provoking presentation. Actually, I had assumed that we all know Professor Ishaq Oloyede, so I didn't really introduce him properly, at the beginning of the program. What we, we have Professor Ishaq Oloyede, who is the current registrar of JAM, former Vice Chancellor, University of Ilorin, former also leader of many West African university associations, and a lot of others. In fact, he is an international scholar, and he has just proven it to us. So once again, thank you so much for this incisive and thought-provoking presentation. We do not have so much time, so there is no time to really go through what you have presented. It's been so self-explanatory, so that you don't need summaries, of what you have presented. Given us everything that we need to listen to as far as the impact of COVID-19 is concerned on the education. And you of course also reminded us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has provided us as Muslims with the wherewithal or the solution to all the problems that we face, COVID-19 inclusive. Having said that, I know there will be, questions and comments, from our participants and other distinguished personalities present. So I will share my other comments, to my closing remarks, and then request that Professor Ishaq Oloyede, carry on the next stage of activity, which is identifying those who will be making comments and presenting. Since you the
Yes, thank you, sir. There are two methods. Somebody can raise his hand electronically, and some, if you raise your hand even physically, me here, I can see. But some of you raise your hand physically because you didn't register properly. I may not be able to know your name, because if you register as Infinite Hotspot, where you do not use your name, it might be difficult to identify and unmute you. So somebody is Hawaii, somebody is Technospark 2, somebody is Galaxy A30. So I want to see those who raise their hand. Jamil Muhammad is raising his hand. Please, Jamil Muhammad, yes, you can unmute yourself, Jamil Muhammad. I've seen your hand and I've called you. Jamil Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Let me begin by thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for trying us with the COVID. Not because it's a good thing, but at least it has exposed us to another world view and another system of living. Alhamdulillah for this trial. As we know, for every trial to a Muslim is khair, like the Prophet said. I want to also appreciate IIIT and by extension, Professor Ishaq Oloyede for making this expository.
Oh, you are breaking. You are breaking. Oh, you are breaking. Okay, pending when you will come back, can we call? Unfortunately, another person raising his hand is Infinix S4. And Infinix S4, you need to identify yourself. I've asked you to unmute if you know yourself. Infinix S4, I have asked you to unmute, but you have not given your. Introduce yourself.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
This is Dr. Abdullah.
Doctor.
Adebayo.
Dr. What?
Abdullah
Dr.
Adebayo.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. Nice to them. I appreciate our professor. Thank you for the presentation. But I want to ask a question. What is the Islamic Institute?
You are not clear. You are breaking. Oh no. You are breaking.
Oh.
You are breaking. So please let's call Professor Aliu Paiko. Professor Aliu Paiko. Professor Aliu Paiko, you can unmute yourself. Professor Aliu M. Paiko, unmute yourself. Professor Aliu Paiko.
Hello, Prof. Yes.
Go ahead.
Very incisive talk there, Professor. My name is Aliu Mohammed Paiko, the Associate Professor of Biochemistry and Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic in IBB University, Lapai. Your talk was quite very incisive. It has covered in my opinion, almost every part of the topic. But very importantly, your suggestion regarding how Nigeria should move forward, with ICT programs or e-learning programs. Right now, even before the coming of COVID, during the tenure of Prof. Turari, we had started to collaborate with universities abroad to float 100% e-learning programs. And we've gone very far. We had signed an MOU, and as I speak to you, we had, oh shit. Hello, Prof, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yes, okay, so we had really gone very far, and we had even started taking, admitting students with a view to prepare the next academic season. But we have sent our Director of Academic Planning to speak to NUC, and the feelers we're getting is that National Universities Commission at the moment does.
We don't know you, we see you, you are raising your hand, but you came in with techno something, 5 something, and since I don't know you, there are other techno 5. Have you seen? Okay, I've read what you said, Professor Paiko, that NUC does not have policy framework for ICT. I believe they are developing one now. I think it also made them unprepared. They were already working on it when, before the pandemic came. I think they brought up Professor Kebukola and co, and they were working on it before. But I think it's a lesson for all of us. By the time you get back to NUC, you will see that the framework will have been completed. Yes, I can see Jafaru Mahmood raising his hand. Please, Jafaru Mahmood, go ahead.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum.
Mahmood. Wa alaikum salam.
My name is Jafar
Wa
Mahmood.
alaikum salam.
I work with Nasen Solar Energy
Go
Limited.
ahead.
Yes,
Okay.
I thank the IIIT, the organizers, and you, Prof, for your in-depth analysis of the situation. My contribution would be, or answer kind of, a question kind of is that, for one, the general framework to be able to implement these solutions, they are not there. Like somebody mentioned that the NUC is not ready yet on the teacher side. But for us as Muslims, we need to be able, can we have association, or at least we already have some groups that are existing. Can we have those who can take up the mantle to be able to establish a general framework that will be able to fortify us? Like in part of your speech, you mentioned some of the things we suffer as Muslims greater than others. How can we go about generating either a separate group, which will just be a multiplicity if the others will be functioning, or we just say, okay, these ones that are existing, who and who can we identify to say, okay, let us start something so that in due course we'll not fall a victim to what we have already fallen a victim of.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that Muhammad, those who are raising their hand, can I see any physical one again? I'm looking at the screen in case you raise your hand physically so that I can invite you. Electronically, there is no raising his hand. The hand, I can see one Infinite Smart, but I don't know you. So I see you physically. You are wearing shirt and trouser, and your madam is coming in behind you, but I don't get your name. So I can't invite you because I don't know what your name is unless I activate everybody. So TechnoSpark 2, I can't call you. I see your hand. Kudu, are you raising your hand? Kudu Dangana, yes, I see. Yes, I Kudu Dangana. Let me search for it because you are raising physical hand. Kudu Dangana. Kudu. Yes. Kudu, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Hello?
Dangana, yourself and speak.
Yes.
Yes,
Can you hear me, sir? Okay, sir. My own, I'm...
clearly, loud and clear.
Okay, I'm Kudu Dangana from IBB University, Lapai.
Okay.
Okay, current ASU chairman, sir.
You. Oh, ASU.
Yes, sir.
So, you are part of the problem.
Hello?
On strike, Abi. You are on strike. Oh, yeah, yes. Go ahead.
Okay, sir. First, I will start by appreciating you for the wonderful presentation, and for, in fact, the lecture is highly incisive. We sincerely appreciate you. This thing regarding the lecture is about the traditional Islamic scholars, those that gather children at home, and in view of this COVID-19, I don't know how maybe government will come to their aid so that they can equally comply with the ICT, or if there's any way government can help them to reduce the effect of COVID-19. Our Malams.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Traditional Malams, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Any other question?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Hi. Hello?
Hello, go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead. Go ahead. I cannot, TechnoSpark 2, I cannot call you because I don't know you. I mean, I can't identify you. There are so many TechnoSpark 2. So since you are not with your name, I cannot easily identify you.
Hi. The network.
Okay,
Hello?
I've seen your hand. Okay. TechnoSpark 2, I've been able to identify you. You can unmute. I've asked you to unmute yourself. TechnoSpark 2. Unmute yourself and speak. Unmute yourself and speak. You only know yourself because you came in as TechnoSpark 2. That's one of the reasons in JAM that when we want to hold this type of meeting, we insist. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead. You have the floor. Lawal Khalid, are you raising your hand? You are in a car. Lawal Khalid, are you raising your hand? Because I saw your hand. Lawal Khalid, he's in a car, but I don't want somebody in a car to be talking. If he's the one driving, it's dangerous. Lawal, yes, but I give you the floor. But if you are the one driving, don't drive and speak. Go ahead.
No,
Lawal
actually,
Khalid.
yes. I'm just
Go
saying
ahead.
I'm just saying salam alaikum to all of us.
Okay, wa alaikum salam. We wish you safe journey.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. There's another person. I can see nobody. Physical handshake. There is somebody. Number 2 on top. Muhyiddin or something like that. Nuruddin. Where is it? Okay, Professor M. Aliu. Let me look for him. Professor M. Aliu. Aliu Paiko. He has spoken before. Okay, he has a problem. Okay, Professor Aliu Paiko, you are back. Oh yeah, go ahead. Professor Aliu Paiko, go ahead. We have unmuted you. Unmute yourself and go ahead. Go ahead. You are still not coming up. Oh.
Yes, sir. I can. I'm here, sir.
Go ahead.
I'm here, sir.
Yes.
What I was saying, I was told that you had responded to my queries. All I wanted to say, some of us, IBB University, we were already forward thinking a long time before even COVID-19 came. So because of the policy framework, so many people have been disenfranchised. But my colleague now, when my battery ran out, he told me that you had responded.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think what we will do is, yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me read what MD Galadima, Nigeria Consulate in Jeddah, what he sent to everyone. You can also see it on your screen. I'm reading it from my own. He said, I want to appreciate Prof for his in-depth analysis of Nigeria education. I do not think there is anything the NUC could do now to accept e-learning program because of the enormous challenges we have. How do we are only addressing this to the cities, neglecting the rural area, where they do not have energy to join this kind of initiative. E-learning, an environment that we do not have power to light the system to proceed on. My suggestion is that until government achieves the target of providing power to the entire country, otherwise all this discussion remain a mere academic exercise. So we have had your contribution from the consulate. I think it's also true. So since there is no, I can't see anybody raising his own. Okay, there is Ali Yusuf, SAN. I want Ali Yusuf, SAN. You can unmute yourself and speak. Senior advocate,
hello.
Go ahead.
Sir. This is Ali Yusuf, not SAN, sir.
It's a coincidence of them.
Yeah,
please go ahead.
Sir. My name is Ali
Yusuf.
My question is, considering the present situation, we as students and teachers are registering into online courses. So now, before now, we used to understand that university system does not recognize this online certification, either for promotion or for continuation of academic activities. So considering this situation now, what are the strategy or the things in place by maybe NUC to consider online certifications as part of the requirement for promotion or commencement of postgraduate or additional studies? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We will come to that. There is, I saw one Baraka. Dr. Baraka Raji, let me unmute you. Dr. Baraka is not here again. Baraka Raji. I saw one Dr. Baraka Raji. Yes. Baraka Raji. Yes, unmute yourself.
Okay. Yes, hello, sir. Salam alaikum, sir.
Hello, you are welcome. Wa alaikum salam.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank you for that insightful presentation. Jazakumullah khairan. My only take home is that I don't know, because you made mention of distance learning. Considering the children of at the federal university, that we all know that the majority of them come from less privileged homes. So if we should now say we should go distance learning, I don't know, do you think that the parents can afford buying data? Because distance learning requires a lot of data. So I don't know what your view would be.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you, madam.
Yes.
Yes. Raki, let me see. There is Rokiba. Rokiba, I saw Rokiba here. Rokiba, please unmute. Rokiba, go ahead.
Yes, assalamu alaikum.
Yes, you have the floor. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Prof, for this talk, and also to the organizing committee. My comment or suggestion will be towards maybe we need to revisit our curriculum, right from primary schools until the tertiary education, to include courses that are blended or purely online courses to train our children right from primary school to the tertiary education for these online classes or blended classes. And also, I had the CBT, for example, CBT, computer-based test in the university is limited only to large classes, classes with 1,000 or more students. So I feel this is not encouraging, because one, the students are internet phobic, and also it's a lot of work on the lecturer side if we limit only to large classes. How about the small classes? And also our current CBT is only based on multiple choice, just for the student to tick. Whereas some part of the world are advancing that they can write essay type questions, exam, just having a screen locked down with cameras, and they will take any kind of exams.
Yes.
But ours is limited only to CBT and only to the large classes. So I feel maybe we need to revisit our curriculum to upgrade from education 1.0 to 203.
Yes, thank you very much, madam.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rokiba.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, though you are not raising your hand, Lemu, Nuru Lemu, you are there, please. I raise your hand. Nuru Lemu, Nuru Lemu, I've raised your hand for you. Please talk. He has disappeared. Maybe he doesn't want to go. He has stepped out of the meeting. Okay, we have wanted. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I think I can respond. And
go ahead.
Yes. The first issue about being a crier from Almighty Allah, I agree with Brother Muhammad Jalil very well. And I also agree with Professor Aliu Baiko about the preparedness and the fact that regulation had to come in. I believe NUC is working hard on that. I also believe, like Brother Jafar Muhammad said, I'm not absorbing myself because I'm at the center of it. I think this puts your suggestion about what Muslims should do puts the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs. I'm the Secretary General, so I'm not pushing blame to them. If there is anybody to be blamed, I'm part of those to be blamed. I think Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs needs to do more in championing such a thing. I don't think we are doing sufficiently well. And though we established what we call MESH, Mission for Education, Social and Health, but that does not address this issue that you have brought up adequately. I think we will have to go back to the drawing board. But Dr. Tanko or any of these organizers can send us a memo on such a thing, because it brings out the weakness in our system that we are not doing sufficiently well. I would carry that, but I would appreciate it if Dr. Tanko can forward a memo that will at least be a formal basis for whatever action we will do on that. And as said by Brother Kudu, that about the local malams, I think our politicians, with due respect to the Honorable Minister, I know your own class of politician, but that will not stop me from talking generally. Our politicians appear to be living in the sky. I don't know, in the air somehow. Even people that you know ordinarily, once they go into public office, they become something totally different. They will be talking and you'll be looking at them. Do they really know what is on the ground? At times, when I see a public officer talking, I will be asking him, I will be asking myself, is this man living in the same Nigeria with us? Because they will be talking in an abstract, artificial manner. For instance, all these palliatives and all these things that we are distributing for, everybody is distributing. If you go to Borno now, you will see that those who claim NGO, these non-governmental individuals that call themselves non-governmental organizations, they have made life more difficult for the people. They have taken the houses, they are paying exorbitant rent and making rent to skyrocket. They are paying attention more to themselves than to the people they are expected to serve. Otherwise, what is the work of a local government chairman or the councillors that they cannot identify these malams within their community for the palliatives and some of these social, economic programs of the federal government? But you find out that the political office holders who are already over-pampered, they are the ones still diverting some of these resources to themselves and their cronies, and will not allow the proper people to benefit from it. But I don't blame them. I blame the public officers we elect. We didn't elect most of these people who are making things difficult. But those we elect, they must be open their eyes sufficiently and deal firmly with people who are diverting the resources. Because government is spending, because when you look at the budget, you hear a lot of money being spending. But when you go on the ground, diversion are taking place. Otherwise, when you take a town like Kano, or you take a town like Minna, or even Kwaiko, as small as it is relatively, if you take it, okay, count the number of people that are benefited from this thing. Let's go town by town. And again, because the Muslims themselves, we have problems. A lot of us, we are not holding our public officers accountable. How many of us even know who our House of Representative member is on the House of Assembly? To call him and say, okay, this thing they distribute, what come to our local government, what come to our ward out of it? It's like a lot of, when I see the Honorable Minister for Humanitarian Services reeling out what government had done. And when you go on ground, something somewhere, there is somebody who had diverted, who does not make the thing to get back to the people. And we need, of course, I don't hold those people responsible. I hold the public officers responsible, because it's your duty to make sure that what you are giving out actually reaches the ground. And if it's on whatever obstacle is there, has to be removed. So I agree with you about this local malams. And my prayer is that our public office holders will do the needful. About about certification. Online, I think government by policy had not said they should not allow online certification. But by attitude, they are discouraging it. Officers are discriminating against, you go now, those who attend National Open University of Nigeria, they cannot go on NYC. They cannot go to law school. By policy, it is not by policy, it is by implementation. But I think COVID-19 will have opened the eyes of our regulatory authorities to that. And I can assure, I know of NUC, I know that NUC is working very hard to make sure that the appropriate template is designed. Then, Dr. Barakaraji talked about data. I want to a bit disagree with you, ma, because the cost of going to school, what the students spend in school when they are in the hostel is more than the cost of the data. I think if we reorganize what we are spending, because if a child is at home and is learning through e-learning process, he will spend not up to 10% of what he will have spent if he had been in school. The expenses in school is more, it's costlier than but nevertheless, the data is made cheaper than it is. But that should not be an obstacle for the Muslims. And I agree totally with my sister Okeba about a blended system. But what is making people, the problem is about fraudsters. Fraudsters will come in and they will make a nonsense of the whole thing. I believe that large classes, we can start with the large classes. And you are right when you talk about objective, that we use CBT only for objective questions. There is no question that you can do by paper and pencil that you cannot do by CBT. It's only that the appropriate infrastructure is not there. You can write an essay on CBT, because all you need to do is to type it on and somebody to grade it. It's not limited to CBT, but this is part of why we are saying we are still at level 1.0, because others have moved beyond that. I must say also that WAEC has started to experiment with computer-based essay writing. I think they started, I happened to serve on their board, and I got in one of the meetings, we got the report of what WAEC is doing in that direction. We are moving slowly, but we are not stagnated. I think one day we will be there. So, Mr. Chairman, these are
Yes,
my
sir.
responses to the question. I hand over to you. Thank you,
So
Mr.
thank you so much, Professor Ishaq Oloyede, for responding to all those questions, most appropriately. I'm sure most of the those who asked the questions are satisfied with your submission. Well, time is running out, and it's time to put goodwill message. And I will implore you to kindly facilitate this aspect as well, because you control the platform, as I did mention earlier. Of course, we're going to start with Professor. We're going to listen to goodwill messages from some of the eminent personalities that have found time to be on this event. We'll begin with Professor Omar Kasule, and thereafter, you will, proceed with inviting the distinguished personalities to, mention their goodwill, so to speak.
Okay, thank you very much. Professor Omar Hassan Kasule, you have the floor.
Yeah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Thank you very much, Professor Oloyede, for this very good presentation. I liked the comments of the participants and their questions. The message I want to pass on is two things. One, COVID is a major problem in the world, and as a medical doctor doing research on this, I can tell you it's a big problem. We haven't dealt with something like this before. But inshallah, Allah is great. Inshallah, eventually we'll be overcoming it, but not this year. We'll go into next year. The second thing is, we shouldn't look at this COVID pandemic as a disaster. We should look at the positive things in it. One of the positive things is it has forced us to do things in a different way. And these new ways of doing things, inshallah, may be better than what we are doing before. And one of them is online education, online preaching, online communication, online meetings, which are more efficient than when things were face to face. So let us look at the positive side of it and be optimistic and make use of it, inshallah, even after the pandemic ends. Wassalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I have the mandate of the chairman to invite the Honorable Minister of the FCT, Malam Muhammad Bello, to make his comments. Honorable Minister, sir. Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister is there. Honorable Minister, unmute yourself. I could see that you are.
Yeah, you need to unmute me.
Yes, you are unmuted already. We hear you.
Hello?
We hear you loud. You are on.
Hello?
We hear you, Honorable Minister. We are hearing you. Honorable Minister, go ahead. We are hearing you.
Okay, أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. As the chairman of the occasion, our guest speaker and the convener, good afternoon to you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
The COVID-19, as earlier explained by the guest speaker, is something that has come and it has totally transformed the entire globe. Even if the immediate danger of the pandemic goes away, there is no doubt that everything has been changed. Just education, but the entire way of doing things the world over. Professor Oloyede has, as usual, explained the topic very well, the challenges and the way forward. The point I just want to ask is, with respect to education, particularly in our country, Nigeria, and also more important within the Muslim Ummah, what the interventions we do has to be from the Ummah itself. As you know, constitutionally education is handled by all the three tiers of government. But in my opinion, the critical tier is the first tier at the local government level, at the community level. And unfortunately, this is where we have the greatest weakness. It's very important that members of the Ummah in their communities have to demand more from their elected and appointed officials. Depending on just government alone, to be able to create a platform so there will be inclusivity with respect to education, especially modern ICT-based education, is going to be all order. So every community, every da'i, every person, especially among the Muslim Ummah, men and women, has to try within their own locality to create a system whereby there will be inclusivity, especially with those who are poor. The COVID-19 has greatly brought out and even enhanced the divide between those who are poor and those who are poor. And as you know also, it requires the infrastructure, know-how, and also the resources to be able to use the new normal in education to meet the vulnerable groups. But the advantage we have is, even among the poor people, use of telephones and mobile platforms to communicate has really been quite pervasive, and it has reached many nooks and crannies. So what we need to do is to build on that. But definitely it's very important for us as the Ummah to know that we cannot depend on government. To do that, every community has to work, starting from the mosque level, from the family level, so that those who have been endowed with education and capacity should be able to use their resources, both human and material, to be able to really push this. It's going to be very difficult. It's going to be long term. That is the only way we can do to bridge gap between the poor, vulnerable groups and those that are somehow better endowed. This is just my take on this, but I believe it's doable, it's possible, especially if you see penetration of mobile phones in Nigeria and the fact that most of the phones now have that capability. Even if we don't do the video aspect, even if we will just disseminate information using voice, I think it will go a long way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Over.
the Honorable Minister. We now move to the Honorable Commissioner for Education in Kaduna State, Shehu Usman Muhammad, to please unmute himself and speak.
Auzu billah, bismillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. The chairman of the occasion, our erudite presenter, the convener, Professor Umar Hassan Kasuli, who's here with us, the FCT minister, distinguished brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Indeed, the presentation is a reflection of really what's happening on ground in our country, particularly in the Muslim community. We are very used to fire brigade approach. We have had this. When something strikes again, we will also start from the scratch. We will never learn to build on our past experiences. The COVID-19 pandemic has exposed a lot of things in our communities, in our governance, in all our ramifications. Monumental loss has occurred in the education sector. Schools became very, very, empty. Vandalization started and continued. For absence of any emergency preparedness on education became very clear. The disparity between the urban and the rural community in terms of access to social economic infrastructure became very clear. Even for those of us that started learning by radio, TV, and what have you, it became so clear that those are the rural communities are at the disadvantage. The effect of poverty also became handy. I want to use this opportunity to inform this very important meeting to say that our brothers and sisters that are teaching in private institutions are actually, I don't know even how to describe it, but the poverty became so clear because schools were not paying them, and there is no plan within the Muslim community to remember to say, look, we have our brothers and sisters taking care of our children in our private schools. Can we arrange some palliatives for them? Very few schools were given half salary or 1/3 or some assistance. Even when we started in Kaduna State some efforts, to keep children busy at home, it became very clear that the level 1.0, which the speaker mentioned, became so clear. Parents at home felt that the aspect of teaching and training of children is that of the teacher. And they started calling back to say, look, when are you going to open school? And when you ask the parent, why are you asking? He will tell you that I'm tired of these children at home. I want them to go back to school. So you see, the value of a teacher now became so clear. But then the ignorance of the role of parents also became eminent. Mr. Chairman, I am suggesting that the paper presented by Prof should be well developed and turn into a framework for us to work on and implement. We need to do that very quickly. We need to also push our brothers in government to ensure that network providers provide some palliatives for parents and people that are accessing network to access, for e-learning, should have some palliatives. You cannot continue charging the e-learning platforms as people that are being charged for other social services. I think this is very critical. The new ways of doing things must be imbibed in us to say that we cannot go back to the previous situations. I also want to recommend to IIIT that we need to also have another platform to share experience. What happened? What have you been doing when the whole world or our country or our city is locked down? Let's have experience from states like my state. Let's have experience from the universities and other institutions, so that we can now see how better we'll be able to plan in future in case something strikes like this. Generally, also, I thank the presenter who also admitted later to say that the Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs need to have be proactive. Our brothers and sisters in the health sector also behave the same way others are behaving, running away from patients, running away from clients that have COVID suspects. I think this is not good as Muslims. One key thing that became very clear also for me to mention is the out-of-school children. The definition of out-of-school, which I disagree at every session, and also we need to have a holistic approach to out-of-school. We in Kaduna State were trying to look at the integration of all the Quranic schools into the conventional schools. We license all of them, we record and also monitor all of them. But the bad thing that has happened, which shouldn't have happened, is what we've done, particularly in northern Nigeria, the exchange of Almajiris from one state to another. In public health, I'm a public health person. It's not correct. We should have allowed these people to stay where they are and then take care of them, manage them, let them continue learning. And then at policy level, when we have done everything that is appropriate, then we can do whatever the distribution. I don't want to go further than that, but I want to commend the presentation. And then they ask the person what next after this presentation, because it's critical for us to follow up some of the recommendations provided by the speaker. Brother Oloyede, thank you very much. Thank you, the conveners. Thank you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We have our father, Dr. Abdullah Jibril Oyekon, to make his contribution. Dr. Oyekon, sir.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم.
Dr. Oyekon, you can speak.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I hope you are hearing me.
Yes, sir. Yes, clearly.
Alhamdulillah. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين خاتم الأنبياء سيدنا ومولانا محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. The chairman, the presenter, Honorable Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, distinguished other brothers and sisters present, I like to thank Professor Oloyede, but I'm really worried about all these important ideas, not being made full use of. So I would like to suggest that here we try to see what we can do to take this matter further. And I believe that the speaker himself is in a very good position to help us with that. He's strategically occupying the position of the Secretary General of the Nigeria Supreme Council Islamic Affairs. And I believe our problem is a matter of coordinating activity. There are so many Muslim groups making disparate efforts here and there. And these efforts, unfortunately, sometimes only scratch the surface. But I believe that if our efforts are coordinated, then we might be able to find better solutions. Like, for example, if we are able to coordinate our activities and confront, let me give an example. We talk about a lot of our people possessing telephones. Now, if we try to coordinate these efforts and let us demonstrate to the makers of the phone that yes, our organizations control vast areas where they can, cooperate with us, produce improved gadgets that will, not only satisfy our intention, but also their own profit-making objectives will be satisfied. I will be able to talk, with a stronger voice than if we go individually on such a measure. So I'm trying to suggest that why don't we have a follow-up, whether seminar or whatever, where all the Muslim organizations involved in the education business are invited to have a seminar and look at how to take these matters further. Then we can talk about strategies, how to approach legislators and so on and so forth. With what do the Yoruba say? When you have all the fingers of the hand clenched in the fist, then you have a stronger force. So that's what I'm suggesting that we try to do, get ourselves together, and then we approach those that we think can make an impact on the ICT in our society. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, sir. I will now invite our brother Adamu Aliyu for vote of thanks and for him to hand over to the chairman after vote of thanks. Malam Adamu Aliyu.
Thank you, Prof. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
A'udhu billah, bismillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulullah. We thank Allah for this opportunity and for the journey so far. This is a moment of appreciation that we tender on behalf of the IIIT Central Nigeria office of whoever might have been part and parcel of this epoch-making event. I would like to begin by appreciating our chairman, Professor Nasru Meturare, who have given us his consent and accepted to chair this all-important presentation from the beginning to this moment. I think close to that, we now go to the presenter, Professor Ishaq Oloyede, who certainly has proven the chairman in his opening remark where he recognized him as an erudite world scholar for his wonderful presentation. We thank you, Prof. Alhamdulillah, we will appreciate also to recognize and appreciate the brother, our Federal Capital Territory Minister, Brother Musa Bello, for his time and input to the program. I will also appreciate our brother, big brother in the headquarters of IIIT, our Professor Kasule, who has also joined from the beginning to this moment, and for all the input he has given. We'll appreciate to also recognize the Commissioner for Education, Kaduna State Minister of Education, Dr. Shehu Usman Makarfi, whom we recognize as a stakeholder as far as education is concerned in Kaduna State and in Nigeria. We do hope that you have listened and noted all the recommendations presented by the presenter on behalf of your colleagues, and certainly will put it in the appropriate quarters for possible implementation wherever you can make it. I would like also to recognize, of course, our convener, Dr. Ali Abubakar Tanko, IIIT Central Nigeria office, for bringing this topical issue and accepting, or rather getting it unfolded. I would like to recognize our colleagues, the other IIIT Nigerian offices, that is in charge of North, Southwest, and the Kano office. Precisely the last commenter, that is Dr. Jibril Oyeka, and others who have made the program a reality. We'll also appreciate, finally, to thank all the team and participants who have, by now, I'm sure, benefited tremendously from this educative presentation by the professor. We do hope that we meet in more subsequent programs that shall come your way, inshallah, on behalf of the IIIT Central Nigeria office. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum.
Alhamdulillah, we give thanks and gratitude to Allah.
Sorry, over to you, Chairman, for the rest part of...
Now?
Go ahead, Chairman.
Go ahead. Alhamdulillah, we give thanks and gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this successful outing.
Over to you, Chairman, sir.
Yes, I'm already speaking. Thank you. We have listened to outstanding presentation by our own Professor Ishaq Oloyede and the rich comments from participants and other key stakeholders who have contributed. The corona pandemic has been truly disruptive to our education sector, which has compounded our difficulty in this area. But as Muslims, we can always take advantage of this unwelcome visitor. Just like the presenter had said, in Islam, we have solution for most of these issues that come upon us. In one of the surahs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. And this is a promise from God. And I'm sure, we can leverage on that. Having said that, the task before the nation now is actually to declare the long-awaited state of emergency on education, backed up by sufficient resources, so as to harvest all the brilliant submissions from this presentation, as was alluded to by Dr. Oyekan, In fact, as well as other different quarters, and immediately implement what one would call a national Marshall Plan on education. And this plan must be holistic and all-encompassing. It should be from the primary to the tertiary level. Of course, one is aware of all the efforts, of federal government and other, stakeholders. I'm aware of the 10 pillars ministerial strategic plan. There's quite a number of initiatives on the ground, with respect to improving and strengthening our educational system. However, we must immediately go into action mode now if we are to leapfrog to the education 4.0 that the speaker has, talked about. Well, government is understandably overwhelmed to commitments, and the fiscal space is also adversely affected thanks to COVID-19. But appropriate strategies can be deployed to free up resources by leveraging private capital for other areas of national need. As has been said, for the opt-in time, the issue of uninterrupted power supply to our educational institutions is a necessary pillar for achieving this desired transition to 4.0. All agencies of government charged with the responsibility of shaping and piloting the education sector must tune in to the new reality and provide the enabling environment for smooth transition of Nigeria to education 4.0. Finally, Nigeria must elevate education above political expediency and periodic agitations to a national developmental priority pedestal if we are to remain relevant and resilient to unforeseen challenges, such as the one posed by the novel coronavirus. My commendation goes to IIIT for organizing this very important event, as we look forward to participating in more of such fora for contribution to knowledge. Thank you all, and Jazakumullahu khairan.